everybody? This is Morgan J. Ingram, host of the SDR Chronicles, bringing you motivational tips and tactics for your sales development career, your sales journey, and also for your entrepreneurial career, as sales development is the cornerstone for your career thus far, and what you can make out of it is super incredible. So today I have a special guest, Bob Perkins, the man over at AA-ISP. We have met multiple times. Every time I see Bob, he's super fresh. And so this guy is the guy to know, has a lot of experience in sales, and he's here today to share his thoughts on the topic of the day, how to be a human in a digital world. And as you guys know, we're moving more into a digital world. A lot of stuff isn't even face-to-face anymore. It's through internet. I know I've made tons of friends just through internet, and I see them in person. It's like we're best friends. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Bob introduce himself and why he's excited about this topic today.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was great meeting you at the summit last year. In fact, you spoke at the summit. I'm the chairman and founder of the AA-ISP. We've been around, 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we're a global inside sales association. But I love everything about the profession of inside sales, and whether it's a quota-carrying sales rep, account manager, someone that does renewals, someone that's out hunting, SDRs, right? Even the inbound component of inside sales. So it's great to be here, Morgan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Bob, I want to kind of dive into this first, just for the preference of the audience. How did you fall into sales? I always feel like it's not something that you're just like, you know what, out of college, we're going straight into sales. Like, how did you fall into that? And what was like the first venture that you stepped into as a kid? Because I always know there's a little story where it's like, I used to sell this when I was a little kid.
I never thought I would go into sales. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, even through college. And then I had a good friend of mine, a pastor at a local church that we attended, said, hey, you'd be a good teacher. So I went and I got my teaching degree. In fact, I went on to get my master's degree in education, and I taught for a few years. And I decided that wasn't for me. I was teaching junior high, and the kids ran me out of the classroom. And I remember talking to some more friends, and I taught tennis for a number of years, played competitively, and needed to settle down to get a real job. And someone said, "You'd be good in sales." Well, I had a short stint in sales. I worked at a large hotel, and I realized I didn't really like selling, but I liked everything about leading a group in a team. So I moved into
the leadership component,
the leadership piece of it. In fact, I went into high technology selling and then became a team leader. And I just loved managing a group that had responsibility to sell. So my whole career began around managing and leading salespeople after a short period carrying a bag and selling. And then I found myself moving into inside sales. And after about a year managing a large inside sales team, I'm like, man, how cool is this that we can sell equally as good as a field rep that's out there face to face? And I fell in love with inside sales, even though we were the underdogs. And I really love proving we could do this. So my first half of my entire career leading inside sales was making sure people knew inside sales was good. We were powerful. We could do it just as good as field sales. And that's how I spent the bulk of my career up to the point I knew we needed help. We needed a resource. So I founded the association.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's definitely a great journey. And it's always interesting to see how people progress into that. So I guess my next question goes into when you first started sales and now sales today is probably two completely different things. So tell me about how you see modern sales today and how does the digital world play into that?
Well, you're exactly right. When I started selling, we did not have email. We did not have the internet. We had a bag, right? Our briefcase. And we literally did some cold calling via going door to door, not like not like someone selling the steak knives at home, but we went business door to door. Now we did have the phone, and we relied heavily on the phone back then to do our prospecting. Well, that hasn't changed all that much, right? However, if you fast forward to today, I don't need to leave this office here in Arizona. I can email, I can use LinkedIn, I have social avenues. I do also have the phone, which is incredibly powerful. But you know what's even more powerful? What you and I are doing right here. You're in Atlanta, I'm in Arizona. We're making an amazing connection with video. When I schedule a meeting with a new prospective member, never is it on phone to phone unless they don't have a camera. It's always, first time ever, I shoot them a Zoom link. So look what's happened with sales. But you know what? What hasn't changed, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about later, is the human element is probably more important than ever yet. I think this whole digitalization of the sales process, which is good in many ways, because look what we can do.
Of course.
Thousands apart. We're running the risk of the human element being left aside, right?
Right,
so,
yeah, that's a good point. So like the human element being left aside, how does someone actually implement their humanity inside the digital world without sounding like a robot or being a robot because of all the automation that's going on right now?
You hit the nail on the head, Morgan. What's happened is there's all this noise in the system. Steve Richard calls it vendor static. What he means by that is there's these salespeople and companies trying to just get the word out, trying to meet new people, trying to prospect, and they've left the human component a little bit too far to the side. Look at all the tools that provide cadencing. Well, you got to touch somebody 7 times, this and that, which is so true in many ways. But I believe that we gotta step back for a minute. We gotta stop the craziness of all this, everything with the millions upon millions of emails that are sent each day for sales purposes, and we gotta get back to where I wanted to knock on a door and hopefully look in the eye of a person. Right now, we can't. We're not doing that. Well, yes, we are with video. Right, video is very. But we got to find a way to appeal to the humanity of another contact. If I'm prospecting, I better make something relevant about that person in my initial engagement. It's got to be about them. That's step number one. Make it about them. And you know what? Sometimes you can't do that in all this mass outreach, but you better be doing it as part of your time if you really want to get through to someone, really want to make build a relationship.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. The Chronicles is something that I've been able to put out there, and like that's a unique touch point that people could be like, hey, you've journaled and documented your journey. Like, okay, like I want to talk to you specifically about certain things, and so I think that is super important. And those triggers are how you really build those connections. And I made a video on the other day, and I was like, if you send personalized LinkedIn connections, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that person's going to respond. Because of how many people just send a regular message and just like, I'm not gonna say anything personalized, but like, let's connect. It's like, who are you and like what value are you bringing to my network for me to accept that?
And you asked me earlier how has sales changed. Well, 20 years ago when we just had the phone, it was okay back then to say make 50 dials today.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody had a phone at their desk and they were more stationary, and you got 15, you could get upwards to 20, sometimes even 30% connection rate. You had lots of conversations. You don't today. People aren't sitting by their phone picking it up. The rates today are abysmal, but you got leaders who grew up on that are still saying, oh, you got to make your 50 calls today. Well, no, that's not the answer, right?
Right.
The phone is still alive and very well, and you got to talk to people, but the formula isn't dial a phone 50 times. You might get one person to answer. Well, what good is that, right?
Yeah. So do you believe that the phone is going to still be there, but be less prevalent because of all the social media, and you feel like that's going to be an easier way to connect to people?
It already is. It's already happened, right? Yeah. Everybody, look, texting is on the rise.
Yeah.
Use of video is shooting through the roof. I would not, if I were meeting you for the first time, in fact, we did.
Yeah.
And our first meeting after I sent you an email was on video. I think video is going to be the next must-have. I tell stories about Dick Tracy. Do you know who Dick Tracy is, Morgan?
Not familiar with Dick Tracy.
Okay, that's good, because I was down at Baylor University, and I told a bunch of interns, I said, hey, every sales rep in the future is going to have a Dick Tracy watch. And they kind of looked at me like this.
What are you talking about?
As a professor with a big beard on, he was probably as old as I was. He stood up and he goes, Mr. Perkins, can you tell these students who Dick Tracy was? Well, Dick Tracy was a cartoon character in a cartoon we watched as kids back, 50 some years ago. And he, back then, when there were no computers around, he had a watch which was a computer, which was also a video screen, just like we're doing here on our desktops.
Yeah.
And he back and forth with, the police and all this on his watch. Well, we're not far from that. We're not maybe that far from holograms. All this that we're using, excuse me, someday may just be a hologram that we communicate with. So, the phone is being replaced by these things.
Yeah.
So
you brought up holograms, and John and I have actually had this conversation where we think that it could get to a point where we just do trainings and we're at home, but our holograms like somewhere else, and we're actually doing it. So do you feel like that's where things are going? And then also, how do you be human through a hologram, right? How do you be that presence?
Well, look, you and I are right now, right? This is not a hologram, but it's a two-way video.
Right.
We're looking at each other face to face. We're making that connection, right? Much better than just an email or just a voice to voice. So this is a huge improvement, putting a human back into virtual digital. And holograms, I think, if and when they do come, it's going to be another way of doing it, right? Which might even be better. Maybe there'll even be, other senses that we use in our communication. But the one constant is human empathy, human feelings, human senses, right? And I just think that, this digital pendulum, which is great, because without it, we couldn't do what we're doing, went this way. And, we kind of forgot a little bit the need for this human to human interaction.
Yeah, of course. And talk about, from a sales development and even sales rep level, what are some practical things people can do to get their digital footprint out there and seen more as a human, a person that actually has a conscience and not someone who's just like content?
That's a great question. And, I'm sure there's a lot of viewers here that could add to maybe a few things I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers here, but number one, I think, transparency of you as an individual.
Yeah.
Let people know what keeps you up at night. Let them know your challenges. Let them know what you're passionate about. I think passion can come through even on something as simple as a LinkedIn picture, right? Or a LinkedIn headline. So, let yourself be a little bit transparent, a little bit vulnerable that way. The other thing is, I think when you do reach out, and here's a perfect example. Someone had a connection request to me just yesterday. I clicked on it and they go, "Oh, thanks for connecting. By the way, if you need, your website looked at, we're offering a free evaluation of blah, blah, blah." I'm kind of like, yeah, this person could care less.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather connect and say, "Hey, Bob, I saw that you have a conference coming up in San Francisco. Good luck with it." It's something that, again, I make this simple statement. If you can insert this thing about them,
something that you should pay attention
about them, right? In an email, in a LinkedIn message, in a tweet, right? Whatever. Make it about them, because that shows, one, you've noticed something about the other person. What else it does, it makes you feel good. Hey, Bob, I see you're going to be speaking in San Francisco. Oh, hey, I feel kind of good that, somebody noticed that about me. I kind of get out of this, they're trying to sell me something mode.
Yeah, and that person didn't really ask for anything. They're just like, hey, good luck.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they could be like, hey, good luck with the conference. And then like, by the way, and then it's like, they go into the pitch. So I think that also you need to make sure, like, don't just use that first hook to be like, hey, da-da-da, and then go into something. Like, just use it as like, hey, look, like just a connection point.
I think also another thing is curiosity. We've found through research that a salesperson that's curious is one that often does well in sales, and part of that is they're always looking for a new way to do something. They're always looking to see what's new out there. They like to read books. They like to hear about best practices. So I think as an individual, when dealing with another person for the first time, be curious. Ask them curiosity questions. Hey, Morgan, just like we did in the beginning of this call, I said, hey, I noticed you switch roles. Tell me a little bit about that. So I was curious about you, what you're doing, and how you do it. Well, that's going to there's this thing called trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship.
Any relationship, yeah.
And when I'm curious about you, you're trusting that I'm thinking about you, and I'm curious about you, and that tends for you to trust me as a person that might care about you in addition to selling something, right?
Yeah, so it's not a transactional relationship. It's not just like, okay, we're here to do whatever. It's like, well, I really want to know what's going on. And by prompting that does lead into a trusting relationship that leads into people actually growing as individuals, because now you can have conversations across the world, across whatever industry that you're in. And it's not just about what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to do.
Here's another point to your question on how do you kind of put the human back in. Jill Rowley, I've seen her speak a couple times, and I recall her saying, you need to make deposits before you get a withdrawal, let's say in a bank account.
Yeah.
What she means by that is, I need to offer something of value without any strings attached before I ask you for something. So, for example, I'd ask you, hey, Morgan, I'd really like for you to give me an overview of your SDR training, because sometimes people have needs to have someone come train their SDRs. And so if I understand your training, I may be able to give you a referral. Okay, so that's me making a deposit to you, right?
Right.
I need to do that before I say, Morgan, I need a favor, or I'd like you to consider having your team come to the summit, right? If let's say you're a sales director.
Right.
So I'm trying to sell you something. I'm trying to ask you to do something. So make some deposits before you really go in and take a withdrawal. I thought that's a great little analogy.
It is, because if you're making withdrawals with nothing there, then it's like you're gonna run out. It's gonna run out, and that you can't really build a relationship. But I think that's actually a good point that you make, and kind of goes back. I don't know, do you know Gary Vaynerchuk? Familiar with that? Yeah. So I think one of his foundational statements that he's made in business that makes a ton of sense is jab, jab, right hook. That's kind of how I see the same thing. You got to give value, and then ask. Yeah. I feel like the same way in the digital world. I feel like a lot of people are taking a shotgun approach. They're just like, all right, I'm going to keep shooting until something happens, instead of, hey, like, give out value to the marketplace so they see you as viable. So when you do come with that right hook and like, hey, come to this conference, hey, check this out, go do this. It's like, okay, I'm going to do that because this person has brought value, and I see that person as a human and not just like another person in the digital world.
There's a little bit of a litmus test, I think, about this digital world. And I'll just ask you the question. Have you recently unsubscribed from any email that you can record?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm unsubscribing much more today than I was a few years ago.
Okay.
Now, the reason being is what you just said: zero value and relevance, zero. If something comes through that piques my interest to some level, even though I may not be in the market to buy it, I'll look at it, at least look at it, and I probably won't unsubscribe. There's a big difference. So what's your unsubscribe litmus test today? If you're doing a lot of it, that's proof, right, that this digital transformation has left the human piece out of the equation.
Exactly. And that's actually a really great point And I think more people kind of have to tune into that. And I think especially as people that are coming into their new roles as SDRs, I think that's something critical to think about, because those are going to be the people who are going to have to learn more about the digital footprint than maybe an older sales rep who kind of has that experience and like they can still ride on what they know. But if you're in modern sales and you've been in maybe even 5 years of experience, I think this conversation and this topic is something you have to get more enthralled with, and you have to get more ingrained with. So what are some things from your standpoint that you see the future of sales from a digital footprint standpoint that people need to be paying attention to? I know you mentioned holograms, but what are other things people can be like, okay, I need to start looking at this and studying it?
Yeah, well, there's a whole category of AI, artificial intelligence, right? Yeah. And it's not something of the future. It's happening today, and I think it needs to be embraced, right? There's still a lot of work to be done. All this is going to unfold and evolve. You know, one example of AI that happened to me a couple months ago is I met a new person. I got referred to an individual and potential speaker, and we said, hey, let's connect. And he said, I'll, copied his administrative assistant, who reached out and said, hey, Bob, what's a good day next week? And so we went back and forth, and finally we got something scheduled, and we met. And then I went back to the email, and I saw that the administrative assistant was not a person, but it was just an assistant that was AI. Right. I never would have known, because we had back and forth. And hey, how's the weather there? All that kind of stuff. So, there's new apps all the time that are beginning to implement AI, which can be incredibly helpful. That's one example. So that should be embraced.
Right.
I think communication methodology, and again, I'll get back to my soap opera here on video. If you're not using video like we are using it today, you are massively missing out. The future is going strong towards live video as a primary communication method, right? When you need to have a meeting, especially when there's a meeting involved, a prearranged meeting, dump the phone, okay? Right. You can't see the person on the phone. Now, again, all of my initial meetings, when I do not know, I've never met the person, I got referred to them, and we've had one email exchange, I always go with live video, and I would say, Morgan, 9 out of 10 leave their camera on. And you make a joke about it, right? Oh, yeah. I'm not wearing my best clothes today. I didn't comb my hair, whatever.
My hair.
But if you're not using live video and you're in sales for meetings, you are missing out. You've got to, and we're seeing an improvement as we do research on it. So there's that. And I think the third piece is, look, do everything possible to put the human back in the digital. We gave you a few examples earlier. That's the biggest trend. That's going to be our association's theme in 2018, putting the human piece back into digital. So you'll hear more about it if you come out to AA-ISP chapter or meetings or whatever.
No, I actually love that mantra. That's something that I've been professing video for 2 years now. Like, get on video, it creates humanity. So, but there are people that will come to me and be like, well, I'm not as good as you on video. Like, I don't understand. And I always show people, like, I'll send them my first videos like I was terrible. Like, I really was not that good. I had no idea what I was saying. I was like spouting off at the mouth, and I sounded like I was like Wile E. Coyote. I was just going so fast, and like I was just out here. And it's just so funny to continuously look at that from time to time and humble myself.
Well, here's you don't have to be good. Here's a good example. If you're an SDR and let's say you schedule an initial discovery meeting for your inside sales rep.
Yeah.
And that inside sales rep normally uses WebEx, and maybe they do a screen share, but no video.
Right.
And if you said to that inside sales rep, hey, this meeting I scheduled for you next Wednesday, the person's actually going to be in town. He called me and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Can I just stop into your office? Well, let's assume you have a conference room you can use. Would that inside sales rep say, oh, no, I don't want to meet the person? I just want to do it over WebEx? Of course not. They're going to say, yeah, I'll get some coffee, and whatever. We'll have this nice little face-to-face friendly chat and discovery meeting. This is the next best thing to having a person come into your office.
Yeah.
Here.
And I want you to further touch on this so people get clarification that are listening in and watching this. How do you get comfortable on video? And like, I have my thoughts, but what are your thoughts? Because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to just get on video because it might expose them.
But you know what? It's like the person that doesn't fly. I didn't fly till I was in my 20s. I never flew. I flew once as a little kid. Don't remember. I developed a little bit of a fear of flying until I had a job where I had to fly often. The fear of flying just went away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of more up here, like I can't be on camera because I'm shy, or I don't look good, or I'm afraid to be filmed. Once you do it a few times, it's like it's a no-brainer. So I think repetition will help remove any hesitancy a person has. That's simple.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a great note to end on right there, is like being consistent by building your digital footprint in the digital world by being human. And it's not just one act, it's a multitude of acts that help you become that human out there. So thank you so much, Bob, for coming on the podcast today. I have one more question for you before we go. What is the number one piece of advice that you have for SDRs before they enter into their new role?
Well, being an SDR is a very, very difficult grind. It takes a lot of work. So as you enter into, say, a new SDR role, prepare yourself mentally that there's going to be a lot of calls and emails that never get returned, calls that don't get answered, people that have no time to talk and they end the conversation. And that's okay. You will get to success through failure in a way. And if we say calling and getting hung up on, or emails not returned, those are just a lot of no thank yous that are going to get you to a yes. So be persistent, be positive, look for the little wins through a lot of hard work. And I'll tell you, if you work hard and you persist, in the end, you will succeed.
Love it. That's great advice, Bob. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Bob. And as I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right, Morgan. Thanks for having me.